All right. Hello, Brian. Happy Thursday. How are you?
Hi, Haley. I'm well. I just came out of the garden uh, where I love buying plants and I love digging in the garden and I dig with my hands. I use a trowel, but I don't use gloves because I need to feel the
Yeah.
earth. Do you do that too?
I love to walk around barefoot, and I also spend a lot of time like with my hands just on the ground.
Yeah. Are you a gardener?
Not really.
Yeah. There's something quite wonderful about it because the plants actually become like children.
Yeah,
They're your friends, and I talk to them. You know,
absolutely.
I walk by and I'll say, "Well, don't you look great today? What a beautiful blossom! Nice going." And who knows? I mean, it's they'll say, "Oh, people say, well, plants don't speak English." Well, neither does the dog, but the
Right.
dog
And neither
recognizes.
do some humans.
Yeah. And yeah, and you can speak to somebody who doesn't understand a word you're saying and have them understand completely what you're
Yeah.
saying because of the emotion involved. So
Yeah. I
I
speak
love,
to,
go ahead.
I don't like get in the dirt,
Yeah.
but the plants that I have here, they all get a chat every day. And I actually have a hibiscus right outside my bedroom. So when it
Yeah.
blooms, and they bloom like first thing in the morning, and it just somehow just blooms straight in the view of my door. So it's the first thing I look at every morning.
Yeah.
But I do think that they hear us, and I feel like, I mean, I don't know, would they die
Their
without me talking to them?
their energy. No, well, they're going to die anyway,
Yeah.
not the whole plant, but
Yeah. There was
I do think that we're good fertilizer.
I do think so too. And there was somebody a couple years back that actually recorded the frequency of a sunflower,
Wow.
and you can actually hear it. I don't know what they did, how they amplified the frequency enough where you can hear it, and it's quite amazing.
Well, I remember a study many, many years ago where they wired plants and had a person yank off a leaf. And then when that person returned, the plant registered an emotion of
Oh.
fear or whatever. I mean, there was a change in its energy.
I do always say sorry when I knock a leaf off. I'm
Yeah.
like, you really didn't need that, but sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you?
I'm doing really well. It's been a very
Yeah.
busy week, and a lot of late nights with clients. I've had a lot of anxiety filled clients and people coming to me, which has been a joy. A lot of people get concerned. Well, my friends get concerned. They're like, you need to slow down or you need to have boundaries. And I'm like, this is my happy place.
Absolutely. I don't think people understand that the payback that you get
Yeah.
from giving, you know, it
And it
far surpasses often, you
fun
know,
does. And it's
what
energizing.
goes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was with Christy. No, it was before that with Sarah. We were asking the question, do we ask for this or are we called to serve? And this
Right.
week was very much one of those, I asked for this.
Uh-huh.
Man up, I asked for this, go. Because
And
I
you're
did
glad
have
about it.
two really difficult calls where I was just like, in the middle of the call, I was just like, I don't remember asking for this.
Oh,
I don't want to
wow.
be the messenger here. And it was like, no, 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 no. You asked for this and you are given what you can handle. Go for it. And I was like, all right.
I think sometimes people assume that uh, if we have a pretty steady level of high frequency that we're always there, and we're not.
Mm,
We have to keep reminding ourselves that we don't want to go down to the basement. We don't want
yeah.
to run away. We want to go back. And it's practice, 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 practice uh, of uh, of being the person that you want to be, of
Yeah.
fulfilling the role that you've asked for.
And I think I've really become sort of, probably over the last 6 months, really realized that when I am powering up my ego, that is when I am using energy. That is when I am wasting energy. That is when I'm becoming exhausted. When I am
Yep.
powering up sort of my higher self and being truly me, I'm energized, and I just keep like energizing, energizing, energizing. So it's an interesting being able to observe. And I know we're never supposed to look at the past, leave the past behind. I think, it's helpful to look at the past to be able to see how far you've come and be able to see the
Yeah.
progress and have that moment of celebration where it's like, oh wow, I'm actually doing really well.
And sometimes you're not. I mean, I sometimes surprise myself by how I get tripped up. I I have the hardest time of letting go of the things Ray and I collected over the years that are now in the possession of our nephew and niece, who I adore. But letting go of control of things that were birthday presents and Christmas presents, and letting go of the need that the story be remembered where they came from. Uh, it's I don't like it when I get in that space.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the me I want to be. Clinging creates suffering,
It
and I
does.
know it. And even
Mm-hmm.
when you're in it, even when you're doing it, and you're telling yourself you're creating suffering, that doesn't mean that it's easy to get out of the basement.
Yeah. I think it gets easier each time,
Yes.
but I still think like when you're in it, it's just like, oh man.
And it's so easy to tell others,
Yeah.
you give them a very clear picture of what's going on, that you're creating your suffering by clinging to this. Can you see that? And they'll say yes. But you do it yourself. And that can be disappointing. But I think the sense of disappointment, if held gently and kindly, uh, can be a good teaching tool.
Yeah, and I think the key words there being gently and kindly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to oneself.
Always to ourselves first, because I think, one of the things that I was thinking about this week was sort of the convenience of spirituality, the convenience of religion, and how we like to use it to work for us. But when it's not really working for us, it's like, yeah, not my thing. And I think that's, you first need to be gentle and kind to yourself and get into the habit of that before you can be truly gentle and kind with others.
Well, speaking of being gentle and kind with others, uh, as you have read, Rush Limbaugh,
Oh, I
a
saw that
very
he
died,
moved
yeah,
on.
at age 70. And in my life experience, he was a stinker. He hurt a lot of people, but a lot of conservatives loved him because he said things that they didn't dare say out loud about blacks, about Obama, about gay people. I mean, he actually read the names of gay men who died of AIDS and played songs, sort of silly songs, goodbye, so long, farewell. Uh, and so when he died, my temptation was to, all right, he's died, don't say anything about it, just let it be. I had a really hard time not saying something. So a friend sent a post and I reposted it. But in my post, I said, they say to not speak ill of the dead, but not speaking denies the universe testimony on the soul that has moved on, right? When somebody is in the courtroom before sentencing, the family of the person that he or she killed is given the opportunity to say, this is how you impacted us. Right? This is what your behavior has done to us, and it's important that you know that. And I think I agree that it's important that that person not move forward to prison or whatever without being fully aware of how you impacted. Bill Konigsberg's book, The Bridge, we had Bill on earlier, talks about the impact of somebody jumping off the bridge. on the family left behind. What do you think about that?
That's a big topic. So when we talk about impact, I think it's important to separate the difference between our energy in the human body versus universal energy, and to just take a step back and be very clear on which came first.
Well, he would be somebody who I would say didn't channel his soul. He didn't channel the love of the universe very well.
I think he fits that sort of definition of what we were talking about with Christy yesterday, when his heart is so clamped.
Yeah.
So clamped. But
and he appealed to people who he gave voice to millions of listeners who loved him. He was given the Congressional Medal of Freedom by Trump. I mean, this is the highest honor the government can give a civilian. If Trump was president, the flags would be at half staff right now, and Limbaugh would be lying in state in the Capitol.
But he's not.
Yeah.
And he has already transitioned into that soul where now he has this enormous weight of karma that will he come, I think that's where I try and find my middle in this and try to be sort of clear in terms of what is justice and what is the healing here. So in terms of justice, there's so often that it feels like when you talk about the life that he had and how many people fueled that, he fueled as well as fueled him. It's a sick, it makes you want to throw up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the weight of karma that his soul is now carrying. So the question that I always go into the universe, I'm like, so does that mean he comes back as a human? Or there are in, different shamanic and different religious ideals that they come back as now that next plane, which would be an animal, depending on how,
or a black lead,
how heavy the karma is.
Or just, yeah.
You would come back as an animal, an insect. If you really sucked at that, you're coming back as a mineral, like a rock.
Or a poor black lesbian.
And I do think that's the whole thing here. I did have a teacher once that said that a lot of, and again, not necessarily my belief, but I think it's worth mentioning just to be curious about it and to sort of ask that question. How does karma play out? She had a belief that the Indian Americans that were being born now, the Native Americans, were actually reincarnated. All those people that had hurt them and done really unspeakable things were now being reincarnated as Native Americans and having to live the results of their choices. So I think, is it true? I don't know. I haven't spent enough time to actually look at it. But I think that it is something that we need to open our minds up into in terms of, all right, they have passed on now. What is the weight of the karma? And in terms of the weight of the karma, I think, for me at least, I relax knowing that the universe is all around us. It is all knowing, it is all seeing. And there's stuff that he's doing that nobody else sees, that the universe sees, and just checks on that, whether it's like Father Christmas, is that naughty or nice?
Yeah, Hayley, I don't wish him ill. Some people talked about, I hope you burn in hell. I don't wish that. Mm-mm. But what I do wish for is that his consciousness goes through a life review.
It does.
That he sees the impact of his behavior and is shown what he could have been.
Absolutely.
What he might have been, and then that his own soul chooses to come back as a poor Black lesbian or a mineral or whatever, but that's the choice his soul makes in its effort to become a purer manifestation of the divine.
I 100% agree with that. And I think that's the same for no matter how disappointing a human you have been versus how amazing a human you have been. There is that same life review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I talked to you about the movie Defending Your Life, I think, that I urged you to watch. I don't know if you've had a chance yet, but it's all about the life review. And it left a big impression with me. I don't live in anticipation of that. I don't behave because I'm expecting the life review. My behavior, I think, comes pretty spontaneously from my heart, my soul. But I do think I actually look forward to a life review where I'm able to not sit and be happy at what good I did, but I really do want to know what negative impact have I had on others? Where did I fail? How could I be better? I want to know that.
I don't think we need to wait until we're dead to do that.
Well, except that we're often not aware of something we said or did.
Right.
And that's what I'm really thinking about.
I think we can ask the question though, show me where I could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of at the beginning, how I was talking about like using the past as a tool, not just leaving it behind, but you use your past to heal, to inform so that you can be better. And I think taking moments to, which is part of life, taking moments to look back and see how far you've come. And not only celebrating that, but asking the question, show me how I can be better. Show me where I am, where there is room for improvement. And I think when you ask that question, you are gathering up all those life experiences where perhaps you weren't as present, you weren't as aware, you did not behave in the highest and best. It brings all of those. And then that's when you have sort of another cycle of growth where it's like, all right, you asked to see where you could be better. Here you go.
Are you allowed to pass up your teenage years and not remember anything you said or did in that period of time?
I don't think
Boy,
so.
was that an awful, oh my Lord, the worst, the worst.
And I think, that's part of the beauty of life is no matter how far you progress on your path, there's still moments when I have been a complete shit. And I look at them now and some of them I just cringe because I feel so god awful about it. And part of my path is being able to forgive it and release it, let it go. But my God, do I feel like such a jerk? Oh.
And what I find is that, especially watching a drama, watching teenagers act out, and I get so upset with them for their behavior, which is really, I think a reflection maybe on my own. Although I was a good kid, that doesn't mean I didn't, I wasn't a shit at times. But I think we have to accept that teenagers are supposed to be like that. That's that is part of growing up. It's part of separating from your parents' authority, coming into your own world. And you get very little guidance. I did a podcast with a guy this week. He's out in Seattle, and he runs a jack-off house, right, where men come for intimate touch and masturbate. And we were talking about the reason he had me on was that I've been trying to think through how do we help senior people who hunger for touch? How do we help them find safe ways to have their needs met, right? Rather than telling them we can't talk about sex, It's our organization doesn't allow our volunteers
You're
to
only
talk
80
about.
years old. You've only lived 80 years, but we still can't talk about sex.
Right. And I, I talk about how I feel that at least we kids growing up in the US, we were sexually abused, gay and straight, by not being given a manual, the driver's manual of sexuality. There's so much silly timidity about it. In fact, a book just arrived that I wrote a blurb for, and it's called Sinless Sex.
Oh, wow. Great title.
A Challenge to Religions. And it's written by an American Baptist past theologian and sexologist. And we should have him on, Bill Staten.
We should.
Yeah. He'll be excited. He'd be delighted to do it.
Oh, that would be awesome. And I would learn so much.
Yeah. And well, he was at sex camp, in my book, Sex Camp. One day you're going to need to look at that. It's on my website, free. But
I
do
need to look at it, because I am, like, side note, which I think we're going to clearly are moving towards, is talking about sex. And I think have that discussion.
Yeah, well, I went to a Mankind Project Warrior Weekend training. The Mankind Project is decades old. It's that whole Iron John, the men come into the woods and find themselves and release. We can create a silly picture of it, but it's powerful. Men lost their sense of purpose, their identity, with the women's movement, World War II, women moving into the factories, taking their jobs, not putting anything on the women. They did exactly what nature called them to do, and the moment called them to do. And the women's movement, it's liberated us all. But men sort of got, well, what do I do? Especially straight men. And in this Warrior Weekend, there I am, openly gay, the only gay person in the whole thing, including the staff, this oldest person. And in 3 days, we sat down at the end naked in a circle, for the first time naked except for a campfire. And we got like 5 minutes to talk about our sexuality. I think it was 3 minutes. And when it came to me, I said, whoa, I said, each of us needs 30 minutes, to talk about our feelings. What are our feelings about intimacy with other men? What are our feelings about our own sexuality? But it was given in this weekend of liberation, this little teeny bit of time. And that's what I was, this is all related, going back to teenagers. That's what I was talking to the guy on the podcast about, Paul, that we come out without knowing what to do. And we, like me, latch on to a relationship, stay in it, for your whole life, right? If not one, then serial monogamy or latching on. And but others who think, well, I don't know where to go, and I am ashamed to talk about where I've been. I go to the bathhouse, or I go to a movie theater and jack off in the back with another man, or I go into a bathroom or a park, whatever. And we consider such behavior dirty and not really appropriate for Thanksgiving table discussion, right? But Maslow talked about sex as being, and intimacy as being primary, as important as water and air and food, right? And yet we don't talk about it. So teenagers act out in crazy ways because their hormones are raging.
Yep.
It's biological.
And I think, Maslow is one of so many renowned teachers, and you can look at every single branch of human philosophy and theology that is available to us now, and sex is up there.
Except in Christian theology.
I mean, it's still there though. Look how much it's spoken about.
Yes, but negatively.
But
And
it's spoken about, like whether it's positive or negative, the amount of attention that it gets moves up in terms of importance. And I think we have this, which I hope we're sort of slowly turning the ship, where there's the elephant in the room, and rather than looking at the elephant and being like, hey, what are you doing here? We are so in tuned with just what elephant? Let's not look at the elephant. And I think when you mentioned that, like, men have lost their purpose in a sense, and it is mostly the white man has lost his purpose, that very clearly resonates with me. I wrote a newsletter article probably 3 years ago now, right when the whole Me Too movement started. And I sat with this for a while because I was like, thank goodness nobody knows me, because if this was big, it would probably really piss off a lot of people. But I wrote it because I felt like this wasn't a thing about women. Women are not going to fix the issue here. Men are going to fix the issue.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at the masculine just as much as we're looking at the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Just what I saw at that point was that we had gone from a place where it was so weighted towards the masculine. We just blew straight past balance and went all the way to the feminine. And I think we're still trying to push that movement where it's just 100% feminine. And I think we're missing the point. We require balance between the masculine and the feminine. We need both. It is critical that we have both. Every single one of us has that balance of the masculine and the feminine.
I completely agree. I do believe that because of the time and history in which we're born, we have to accept that the feminine at this time in history needs to be celebrated. Rushing back to the center where both are valued, right, doesn't allow enough time for the feminine to be celebrated. It's like gay pride. People say, well, why do you have to say you're proud? Because I'm at a point in history where for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, it's been shameful to be a homosexual in the culture. And we're saying now in 1969, gay pride, right? I'm proud to be who I am. And for a lot of straight people, that was offensive. First of all, why would, as a talk show host said to me, I don't know why anyone would be proud to be a homosexual. She was a conservative wife of a brigadier general. It was in Miami, and I was debating Anita Bryant Ministries. And I had to address that. I said, I am very proud of my sexuality. In fact, my spirituality, it was only possible because I embraced my sexuality. It wasn't possible without that, because I would have been denying the corporal. I would have been denying the body that was carrying the soul. Yeah. And saying, oh no, we have a duality here, and the only thing of value is the soul. And the soul doesn't really want to have to deal with penises and vulvas and all of that. And what do we call that? Doing the dirty or doing the nasty. Why do we call intercourse the nasty? It doesn't make, for me, and how do you make a spiritual journey if what you do and enjoy and an experience in which you have God present is called the nasty?
I think it's because we're people. I can't get words out. This is how I feel about it. I think, going back to that whole point, that how important and how high sex is in every discussion, whether it's positive or negative. It is always a big discussion. And I think it's because sex is so powerful. And when two people come together in love at a high vibration, having sex is the most powerful energy to manifest in.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you get people that are of uneven energies coming in, it does become a nasty, you're manifesting that kind of energy again. And I think that's how it comes with this idea of that it is a lesser vibration, because 90% of the people out there having sex are having sex because they don't understand it. And I think again goes back to that whole, genesis of this discussion. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody that spoke about sex way earlier on and helped us understand the power of sex, the beauty of it, then we would be in a much better place to have healthier, more powerful relationships.
People, I think religion is understandably nervous about sex, because and the Catholics, and I'm only can speak about that with authority, sex was only licit, only allowed in marriage with the intention of procreating a child. And that women who experienced pleasure were sinning. It was a sin to experience pleasure. And if you had sex on Saturday night, you shouldn't receive communion the next day. Now, the reality is that lust, which we all, I think, have had the experience of, lust, my friend Mary Lee Tatum, who is deceased, she was my best friend. I adored her. She used to teach sexuality to high school kids, and she used the example of Woody Woodpecker. Do you know that cartoon?
I know
Woody Woodpecker. Okay, well, Woody Woodpecker is out doing important things like building a house or sawing, and a female woodpecker walks by, and the top of Woody's head opens up and his brain falls out. And lust can be like that, where you don't make rational decisions. I don't care that you have AIDS. I want to have sex. I want you to penetrate me. No, I don't need a rubber. Do it now.
Yeah,
that's lust. There's nothing rational about that moment, right? And so that I can understand why people feared it, because they couldn't control it, right? You can't control the person at that moment. It's like when Lincoln, gets a scent, or he doesn't hear us. We can yell, we can yell at him, we no matter what. But if he's preoccupied with another dog or with a scent or whatever, forget about it. Mm-hmm. And that's what lust is like.
Absolutely.
And so, and we have to embrace, okay, what's the meaning of lust? It has a purpose, it has a role, or we wouldn't have it in life, right?
Absolutely.
Is it a prerequisite to attraction? Is lust part of attraction and seduction? And, so I understand in my own life about how I have acted irrationally when I had my moments of lust. And self can be, sex can be exceedingly selfish.
Yes.
Right. We all know the image of the man, coming or having his orgasm and rolling off the woman. And she's looking at the ceiling thinking, well, what about me?
Mm-hmm.
And what we've learned, a lot of us have learned, is that women's orgasms have been a result of them giving them themselves, right?
Yeah.
Stimulating in the privacy themselves, because men didn't know how to do it. And men were afraid to ask because it was unmanly, going back to your discussion of the feminine and the masculine. It was unmanly to admit you didn't know, right?
I wish that, when I'm like got my business and I'm a billionaire, just you wait and see the world I'm creating.
Yeah. Okay.
But aside from that, for where we are right now, I think the power of sex is one of the purest forms of power. And I think that there is a reason why it is so hidden, and it is one of those things where it continues to have this dirty, seedy packaging, is because if you had a bunch of people that understood the power of sex, understood how they could be empowered by sex, again, you're with people that are understanding the true power and using it from that place of power.
Well, they do.
Be uncontrollable. They would be uncontrollable. So the church figured out very early on, the best way to control people is to control sex. Mm-hmm. And, I think very much to your point, when you talk about where we came from, battles and that kind of stuff, battles were lost over lust. Mm-hmm. So you didn't want your warriors, being distracted at critical moments. And once again, there it was sex that was, no, you can't have this. It was a way of controlling people. I don't know.
And yet one of the greatest armies in history were lovers. In Sparta, two men who were lovers who would fight side by side. The whole army was lovers, male lovers. And the love they had for the other made them fierce.
Yeah.
Made them, fear.
You have to understand that too, is that like the greatest battles have also been caused because of lust.
Yeah. Helen of Troy.
Yeah.
Helen of Troy is a great example. Cleopatra.
I was going to say empires have been won and lost because of lust. And when lust turns into that burning love. But there's also, the other side of the power of sex and sexual energy is when you look at monks, and I'm speaking mostly of sort of the Buddhist, Hindu monks that don't have sex because they want to keep that power within. Mm-hmm. They keep that energy within to fuel their bodies, to fuel their path. And I think that's a very interesting way of looking at sex, and that sexual energy is, what is the right way to use sex? Should it be used to manifest the world that you desire? And I think both ways get you there. If you are in a place of understanding sex and the power of sex, and going in a place where you are honoring sex, you're honoring the partner and they're honoring you, I think you do create a world not only through a child, but even in your manifestation of how happy you are and how relaxed and vulnerable you feel with the person. You are manifesting that energy. And when you're doing it through sex, you are amplifying it. And I think if you're going that other route of being sort of that monk that is holding the energy within them, when he is manifesting with that same power. It's just within versus with another person.
It's a personal choice. And there are people who really do understand the power of sex. Those are advertisers. If you look, seriously, sex sells. If I see a picture of a hunky guy, that's my type in a magazine or whatever, I stop.
Yeah.
I don't always notice what he's selling, but I
know what he's wearing.
Yeah, I know it, or not wearing. But so advertisers know the power of sex. They know how to manipulate us with sex. The church manipulated us. Huh?
So do we.
Oh, sure we do. How we dress.
Yeah.
The attention we give to details in terms of attractiveness. My being acceptably attractive when I was out there doing my presentations made it easier for me to have access to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't unpleasant looking, there was, I was not threatening because I was in a relationship. So I wasn't a single gay man who was cruising the audience. And, I would quickly in the beginning let them know that I had no interest in them. And they would laugh about it, but they have to be told that because, straight men often fear, well, now that he's told me he's gay, is he looking at me in a different way?
Well, I think straight women fear that too.
Oh, yeah.
I have felt that. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have felt that, had that moment where a gay woman wanted to hold my hand, and I was like, is she hitting on me or is this just friends? Because I do,
Mhm.
like, with my girlfriends, you know, we will be playing around and we'll hold hands.
Mhm.
But
Okay, let's moving along, because we might as well stay with the sex subject.
we may as well.
Okay, so you framed a couple things. You know the two examples I gave you about wars,
Yeah.
Helen of Troy and Cleopatra. What in both instances, what did you hear?
Um,
Women got blamed in both instances for creating the war. When I was in college, there was a priest who used to say, will the women in the room close your legs? Now that the gates of hell are closed, we will proceed. The gates of hell. So women women were seen as troublemakers, the ones who would distract Woody Woodpecker, right, from doing important things. But going back to you gave a beautiful example of two people in love coming together, creating a child, the energy. But guys who go to a jack-off place aren't coming there as partners, and they're not coming there to make a child, obviously, and they're coming there hopefully to have a need met, but they're also there giving touch, right? And one of the things I think we need to do is make sure that we don't elevate procreation or heterosexual coupling, or even gay male and lesbian forever till we die coupling as the highest level
oh,
of sexual expression.
agreed.
Because I believe that people in the who are sex workers, right? People who stand in windows in Amsterdam, red lights, with men walking by and deciding whether they want to go in and be with this person. That for me, there's nothing wrong with it if that's the way the person wants to make their living. And that person has her or his own story to tell in terms of what they're doing for this individual. They're getting paid, and people call them prostitutes, but we have sex surrogates who get paid and do the exact same thing, but because we call them sex surrogates, they're seen as therapeutic helpers rather than trash.
I going back all the way. So when you asked that question about Cleopatra and Helen of Troy, and I don't see two women. I see lust, the energy of lust being the driving force. Um, so that, like, I know that women are the story of it.
Uh-huh.
That's what history has told us. I also, in my experience, I am well aware of how history is so tormented and twisted based on whoever wants to tell it and hear it. And I think when you go to that point about, having sex to have a child, one of the things I learned early on in my path, my journey, was that having a child and does not necessarily mean a human child. Your child can be your life. Your child, what you are manifesting and nurturing and guiding, can be your business. It can be Lincoln. It doesn't necessarily have to be a human child. And I think that when two people are coming together for sex, and I think my inclination is always to see a guy and a girl there, because I think, at least for me, because I'm straight, and I think I like to think that you would see two guys because that's your norm. When they are coming together and they're in that place of that sweet, I'm just going to call it the sweet spot, because it's that powerful manifesting point. You're manifesting an idea, you're manifesting an energy, you're manifesting a world that requires the same nurturing, the same protection, the same guidance that you would do a human child. So I agree with you that having a child is not the highest and be all end all of creation of humanity.
And I affirm your metaphor of, you know, what Ray and I have created as a third entity is, you know, there's Brian, there's Ray, and there's Brian Ray.
Yeah.
And you said, you know, in our first early discussions that, you know, you forget names between us because we're blended. Well, that's the child.
That is the child.
That's a child that was born, and it's real. And when it's powerful, it's really powerful.
And I think, you know, it is so real because I come to, you know, I can speak to you, I can speak to Ray, and I can feel it. You know, even though I'm speaking to you, I can still feel Ray. And when I speak to Ray, I can still feel you. When I come to your house, I don't feel Brian and I don't feel Ray. I feel Brian and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the child, to your point. Mm-hmm. And I think when people, hopefully when they see me, you know, I am just one person. God willing, there definitely will be another person. Will there be another child? I have no idea. Not, if there is, great. If not, great. But again, there it's like right now, my child, you know, is this life that I'm creating, the world that I want to be a part of. That's my child. And that is my choice. So I always, when my friends are like, oh, Hayley's chosen not to have children, I'm like, I actually have a ton of children that I'm nurturing right now and hoping that they grow up to have the same impact that a human child would have in this world. My legacy is my child.
Yes, but what if your child is Rush Limbaugh?
You know, how good of a guide was I?
Well, you could have been, you know, the other thing, Hayley, you could have been a perfect guide and still had a child become.
Yeah. You know, that's a very interesting point because, hey, you know, I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to look at that because I don't know Rush's parental and childhood and all that kind of stuff. He was never a person that I was ever attracted to, even listening to one word of his. I looked at him and I was just like, not my kind of guy.
I'd actually walk out of stores if they had him on the radio.
And that's like, again, like there's people I hear and I literally, my ears throw up because it hurts. And that's my thing, like, just get out, stop listening. And I think there's some people that will hear my voice and it'll hurt their ears the same. But could I have a child like Rush Limbaugh?
Why not?
I think I would have to look at my karma of that, because a person having a child like Rush Limbaugh, I think the lesson would be, can you love unconditionally? And unconditional love is being able to look at both sides of the story and be like, oh my God, my son is such a darling. Oh my God, my son is such a devil. Can you still love them? So I think that would be, if I had a child like Rush Limbaugh, that would be my karmic lesson. I think that as if he were my child and I was his parent and he was so far in that place, I would hope I would do a serious life review before I was dead to say, how could I be better?
And not personalize that it's your fault. I mean, I had a friend who died last year who was as hated by people as Rush Limbaugh. He was in prison for several years, accused of sexual abuse of children as a priest. And he was, one of the biggest names. And people couldn't believe that we were still friends. And I love him deeply. And I don't believe that he actually committed the crimes he was accused of. That does not mean I think he was a saint but the particular crime that he was accused of and found guilty of, I don't believe that he actually did. But it's, it's our choice to love another, regardless of how others feel about that person. And we have our own reasons for that love. And we ought not to allow others to talk us out of it, right? It's because it's a love that could be at a very high level. I'm not talking about, I can't see the wrong my son has done. You people just don't understand him. I'm talking about the ability to love a soul when there's really bad behavior. And yeah, it is. It's really hard, but it is. And I don't feel great about talking and with Rush Limbaugh as the example. I think one day, we're going to hear a story that may help us better understand why he was who he was. That does not excuse.
Does not excuse.
It explains, right?
It helps
helps in understanding. Yeah.
I think it's, this unconditional love is a really tough concept, because that is the purpose of life on earth, is to return to unconditional love. Compassionate boundaries are part of unconditional love. If you are going to show another person unconditional love, you first have to have unconditional love for yourself. And I think we get very confused when we say unconditional love is just this free ending, like no matter what you've done, I love you and come on back in.
Right.
That's not unconditional love. Unconditional love, to your point, is being able to see the spectrum, see where the person is on the spectrum, and honor that person just because they're alive, just as you are too. And I always, try and put myself in that position in terms of, right, if I had behaved in that way, would I want somebody to look at me and say, you're still worth loving? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But don't interpret this love as approval.
Hard.
It's not approval.
No.
Of what you've done.
Yeah.
But I love you.
I want to be around you.
Right.
I do honor that you deserve love just as much as I do. I will be over here now.
Right.
Yeah.
But
if you want to come over here, I will show you the same love, but please know that I will not be visiting you over here.
In other words, not physically, but in other words, because you would visit them in prison, but you're not going to where they are to affirm or justify their bad behavior, bad choices and behaviors.
No, I think, as much as they are accountable for their behavior, I think we are accountable for our behavior and what we enable. Our enabling is a behavior of ours.
Yes.
So when people are doing these things that society considers based on basic human rights, considers a breach of those basic human rights, and you're sitting there going like, oh, but he really just meant good, his intention was pure. No, that's enabling. You are responsible for your behavior and your change in, okay, if that person requires your love and, oh, he's just being a dear, then you need to also have love for his victim, or you need to have love for the person now that really, really hates him because of what he did.
Life is challenging.
It's a lot of fun though. I know we have to go, but I think when you talk, life is challenging, but then you do have these sweet moments. I was at Chichen Itza on Monday.
What is that?
It's one of the biggest well-known Mayan pyramids.
Okay.
Here in the Yucatan. It's about an hour and a half away from me. And it's, like I said, it's probably like the most renowned Mayan temple pyramid in Mexico and probably in the world. And it is a very powerful place. It has a ton of visitors every day. It was a mind-blowing experience. And I
How
think
so?
um, we were very lucky. We got there pretty, like, we go to the sites first thing in the morning. So we're one of the first few led into the site. Most of the tour buses don't start arriving until 10 o'clock. So we try and get in as it opens and start leaving by sort of 11. So we had the place pretty much to ourselves. It was just in being able to feel the energy, being able to just be in certain spots that you were the only person there, which is pretty much unheard of, was amazing. And then there were just moments where it was just like, holy moly, this is real. And like, we felt wind and we looked around. There was not a leaf moving. There was not a person's hair moving. It was just us feeling the wind. And I think when you have those moments, it's just like, oh, this is all real. This is the beauty of life. This is the beauty of life. And I think it was very profound, and we'll have to talk about it, but it
Yeah,
was,
I'd like
that is
to.
the beauty of life, to be able to visit these places, to go, live every day, go through the struggles, choose unconditional love every time, which is a battle in itself. But you are rewarded with these moments in life where you're just like, I can't even fathom how beautiful this is.
Next week, we're going to continue our discussion about the masculine and the feminine.
Yes, with your friend?
Yes, Stephanie Battagliano is an executive with New York Life who has written a book called Reflections from Both Sides of the Glass Ceiling, because she transitioned on the job. When she joined the organization,
Wow.
she, it said male on her driver's license, even though she identified since childhood as female.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's going to join us, and it's going to be a great.
That's going to be amazing. I'm excited for that. I think it's
Yeah.
an interesting perspective, and what a honor to have that perspective.
Yeah. And talk about, her courage in responding to the voice. I mean, how do you tell your parents that you're not a boy, you're a girl, or you're not a girl, you're a boy? And your brothers and sisters, how do you tell them? And then I think I'm going to call Bill State and then ask him if he won't
I
join
would
us
love to. I think that would be a really good conversation.
in about 3 weeks, and
Yeah. Oh my
that'd be
March.
yeah. Yes, I know. But sexuality and religion and spirituality, and how do
I
we
think
bring
that
them
would
all
be a
together?
really good conversation.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think it's
thank you.
timely too. I can't wait.
Yeah, again, my life it just completely changed when I was able to embrace all aspects of sexual expression.
I definitely would love to be a part of that discussion. So I'm grateful to speak with him, as well as Stephanie and everybody we've had.
Yeah.
It's such a
All
joy.
right, my friend, I'm going to go back to the garden.
Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And Ray mentioned that you had a bunch of orchids about to blossom.
Oh, they're all around the property. We bring them home from Home Depot, or they're only like $19 down in Florida, and we let them bloom in the house. And then when they quit blooming, Ray attaches them to trees around the property, and they bloom year after year after year.
Goodness, what a sight.
It's magical.
Well, enjoy it. You're building.
Thank you.
Your child is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. As is yours.
Thank you. We'll chat soon, love.
Bye, my friends.
Bye.